Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. Thanks a lot for being with us here on this Wednesday. It's August 29th. Coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Don't forget, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Go to andymoorehonda.com to get more to your door and the best in new and used vehicles. And the Wow Food Group and their family of restaurants in and around the Bloomington and Bedford areas. Great places like Southern Stone, comfort food with Southern charm, located right at the corner of Patterson and Rogers. How's everybody doing? Well, I hope. We're at the halfway point. Just a great lineup today. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette joins us. Cal Neddenriep gets us caught up on what's going on around the state in high school football. Rick Bozich, the Hall of Famer, joins us as week one of college football is upon us. Several things to talk about with him. One, I noticed a piece in the Indy Star that shows the highest paid employees at from the public universities in Indiana, and they're virtually all. The top 10 earners were all from IU and Purdue. Shocker, of course. Wonder where that Archie Miller was even on. This is from 2022. Even Archie Miller was still on there for $2.4 million as part of the buyout. But who do you think your top earner was? It was Jeff Brom, former football coach Jeff Brom, who's no longer even here. Tom Allen, right there in the second spot. But now Mike Woodson has jumped up there to join him. I think they're both right at the same place at $4.3 million after Woodson was given the $1 million raise. And I can promise you there is there another Big Ten school in which the basketball coach makes as much as the football coach? I'm going to go with the big fat no. That's not a guarantee yet without some solid research.
I don't know the numbers for Michigan State, but I know they paid Mel Tucker a pretty penny, and I'm sure they pay Tom Izzo a pretty penny.
Tom Izzo does not make $9.5 million. Mel Tucker is the highest paid coach in the Big Ten, over Ryan Day, over Jim Harbaugh. How stupid. You want to talk about stupidity? You know, I talk about a lot of the mistakes that the IU administration has made over time. Let me tell you, that was a boondoggler there at Michigan State. They have a one decent season, and they give away the farm to Mel Tucker, a $9.5 million contract they gave that dude. And he got his ass beat by Tom Allen last year without a quarterback, basically. That's funny. But, yeah. Good thing to bring up. Lots to get to. We'll talk about that in a little bit more. Indiana unveiling some new parking policies for the football season. We'll talk about that. Mobile transfer pass is part of that. And Ohio State, they're not afraid. They have named a starting quarterback for the Indiana game. Jonathan Taylor. Oh, should have worn my Jonathan Taylor jersey. I don't have one. He's going nowhere right now. On the PUP list, past the deadline. So, we'll have to talk to Mr. Kravitz about that more on Friday. The Ryder Cup team was announced. Venus Williams gets smoked at the U.S. Open in the first round. 6-1, 6-1. Bailey Zappi, Malik Cunningham among those cut. New England cut both of those guys. They've got one quarterback left. I mean, you know what that means. They're just going to try to get somebody back on the cheat, baby. Kent, the great comment. Has OSU named a kicker? That's a great question. I'd have to go to see if they have a depth chart out. Kent, that is beyond funny. You're right, Gritty Chat. That is beyond funny and quick, baby. And quick. I got to give you that one. How's everybody doing on the Andy Moore Honda hotline? We appreciate you. Fred, always first in line. Kent, bringing his comedy from Mount Pleasant, Michigan. John W. from Southern Brown County. Deer-infested. Deer-infested Eagle Point. Let me tell you, you can't play a hole without having deer on you. Heath, jumping on from down in Danville, Kentucky. Mike wondering, is it Friday yet? Oh, Kent really, boy, he's become a comedian now. He says it's always the weekend when you're retired. Mike, how are you, sir? Yep, the Reds barely hit, getting no hit last night. Speaking of the Reds, Five Lefts, how are you, sir? John on from Southport. Bill, my man Bill, from down in southern Indiana. Gritty Chat from southern Indiana, down around Evansville. Glad to see everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. We appreciate you. Dave in from Jacksonville. Oh, Bill up in the UP. Man, you guys are all over. Appreciate you. And no matter where you're listening. 97.7 The Ref, ESPN in Evansville. Always the right call. 1230 AM, 104.7 WJOB, the voice of the region. 1380 The Fan over in Fort Wayne's sports station. And don't forget to stay, just keep it right here afterwards. Brett Rump's coming up next on The Fan. And, of course, WBRO 89.9. Appreciate everybody. And you can also find us on YouTube if you are not able to find us any other way. And if you do that, please hit the subscribe and like buttons. Yes, it is. Larry, how are you, sir? The weather looks great for Saturday. That is correct. The weather, this is Chamber of Commerce weather right now. I mean, these today and tomorrow are literally going to be perfect. High of 73 degrees, I think, today in the Bloomington area. 74, whatever. No, now it says 77. It's changed. It was only 83 yesterday. High of 77 expected today. High of 78 expected on Thursday. And then Friday, 84. It'd be great, just like yesterday, which was tremendous. Saturday starting to climb back up. But I don't think the humidity, man, the humidity has been so low. That's just been the greatest part. I'm trying to pull up that part of the forecast. There you go for Saturday. Humidity is going to be 62%. So I have to see what it's going to be today and give myself a better barometer. Yeah, rising a little bit. It'll be a little bit warmer, not quite as nice, but you know what? It's going to be a Saturday afternoon for football. Temperatures in the 80s. It ain't bad. It ain't bad. So, nothing but sunshine. Blue balls the yellow ones across the. I was thinking of the blue moon was it last night or tonight? We're supposed to have the blue moon. The rare.
I definitely noticed it was a full moon last night, but I don't know if it was the blue moon. I
Well,
did know that was coming up.
Yeah, it's not
when it is.
And it doesn't mean that it's blue. That's just a term that they give it. It's the second full moon of a month, but this is a rare one. What? Man, I don't have that. I'm not a geologist.
If that is the case, though, I mean, last night was full, so it probably was the blue.
Well, you missed that one. Ooh, that was a joke. Did you hear me? I said I'm not a geologist.
But Tish, I don't know what the joke is. Sorry.
Well, geologists study rocks.
Oh,
astrologists study stars.
I guess the moon is a big rock, though, right?
Well, I guess there is some truth there. I should have used a different analogy for my joke, my own joke. I screwed my own joke up, I guess. Robert says the tomato patch down in Evansville is rocking. How are you, sir? Herbal. Dennis. Fred, wishing all the ugly grouper folks. I think everything is, I think they're going to skirt. Yeah, that storm. Thank you, Fred, for reminding me of that. The storm coming into Florida. Thinking about all of our Florida listeners and our Florida friends. Hoping that storm misses everybody. And actually, and I kind of lost sight of that. Is that thing landed? John Boy, are you the weatherman? You got to be our weatherman.
I have not kept up with the storm in the slightest, unfortunately.
Well, that doesn't help us, does it?
I know. I'm a bad meteorologist.
Well, let's see. Right up to the date, it did make landfall. At Cedar Key, Florida, Hurricane Idalia made landfall along Florida's Big Bend on Wednesday as a Cat 3 tropical cyclone. Sustained winds at 125 miles an hour, which was projected to drive catastrophic storm surge. So, yeah. Where's the... Really? You're not going to give me a map? Oh, here it is. And then it talks about how tonight, it's a super blue moon. How tonight's super blue moon could make this hurricane worse. Obviously, the tides are affected by the moon. So now we've got this rare moon that won't be seen again until 2037. I know this has nothing to do with sports, but it kind of does, because hasn't there already been, didn't Florida have a game that they've moved?
They're supposed to play tomorrow, I believe. They're supposed to play Utah. I don't know where they were playing the game at, but if it was in Florida, it wouldn't surprise me if they had moved it or postponed it.
Something is, yeah. Well, I would imagine since it's Florida, their first game was going to be at home. Florida State, I know that thing was supposed to hit right there. Tonight, stargazers around the world will be treated to a rare astronomical phenomenon in the form of a super blue moon. The event will mark the point at which the moon is the biggest and brightest it's been all year. However, experts have warned that it could have dangerous repercussions here on Earth. That's nuts. The moon will be as closest to Earth on Wednesday, the same day that Idalia is expected to make landfall, but it didn't already hit.
It did, but it was this morning, so I guess it's technically the same day, just not the same time that the moon's out.
You know, while a supermoon can make for a spectacular backdrop in photos and landmarks, yada, yada, it intensifies its gravitational pull, which also makes tides higher in and of themselves. So that's bad luck. You know, a moon that you get rarely hits the same time as a hurricane. I would say the timing is pretty bad for this one, said Brian Haynes, the meteorologist in charge. You think? It's expected to make tidal flooding worse, not only in Florida, but states such as Georgia and South Carolina, where their office has been warning residents that parts of Charleston could be underwater by Wednesday night. Damn. I'm thinking of our boy Mitch. When the moon is full, the sun and the moon are pulling in the same direction, which has the effect of increasing tides above normal ranges. The moon's gravitational pulls are even stronger when it's close to Earth, obviously. So there you go.
Right.
Let's hopefully pray that all of our friends are doing okay. And we'll get through that. We've got lots more to get to. Dylan Sinn joins us next here on the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
I like this. Indiana should have played Indiana or Ohio State today so we could beat them once in a blue moon.
Oh, who said that? Kent Beckman? Did Kent say that?
John W. It's on here on the comment section.
Hence, that's where that statement comes from.
Oh, yeah, evidently.
Not evidently. Bam. You wonder where things come from? Boom. That's where that comes from. Because it's a rarity. Once in a blue moon. Wow. It's ironic the things that people don't know, me included, about all the little statements like that. Yeah, it went north. It went north. Oh, there now. Oh.
Dylan
How's
said he'll
the,
be on in a few. He's not.
How's he's not what?
I think he's gonna be a couple minutes late. He said he'll be on in a few.
Yeah, no worries. Oh wow, look at the building that they operate in.
All right, here we go.
Can play for the rest of 2023 for just $299. That's right, play as many rounds as you like for just $299. That's better than a birdie. But you don't have to be a student to play at Eagle Point. Go online to set your tee time or call 812-824-4040. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday, August 29th, coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway at the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette will be joining us here shortly. In the interim, someone mentioned earlier the Reds nearly no hit last night by Giants pitcher Alex Cobb. He throws 8 2/3 of no-hit baseball before Spencer Steer doubles with 2 outs in the ninth of the San Francisco Giants 6-1 win over Cincinnati on Tuesday. That just stinks. I mean, I hate that for anybody. That, to be that close, golly. You'd like to go back and just hit him instead, put him on and try to strike the next guy out. That would have been the 5th no-hitter this year. But it was not to be. But it was close. Congratulations. But close only counts in hand grenades, right? Yesterday, I mentioned earlier, was also cut day. Or 53 roster day. Trades abound. Jonathan Taylor was not one of them. We'll talk to Bob Kravitz about that on Friday. What's that going to be like? Having an unhappy guy in the locker room that, yeah. Great for locker room camaraderie. Jonathan Taylor still on the physically unable to perform list, or the PUP list. Kicker Will Lutz is reuniting with Coach Sean Payton in Denver, though, and they did not keep that one hidden. They revealed that kicker was coming to Denver. Eagles tight end Albert Owigibaum from the Broncos. Veteran kicker Nick Folk went from New England to Tennessee. I mentioned New England cut 2 quarterbacks. That was the most surprising cut at all, which they let Bailey Zappi go, who was 2-0 as a starter last year, filling in for Mac Jones, struggled in this preseason. The Patriots currently do not have a backup because they have also released veterans Trace McSorley, formerly of Penn State, and rookie Malik Cunningham from Louisville, who played various positions and took snaps in camp. Talk to Rick Bozich more about that one as well when he joins us today. Trevor Siemian from the Bengals. They kept Jake Browning instead in order to give an experienced backup behind Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow doesn't need a backup. Yeah, see anything else that jumps out in that deal, I'm not sure. It's not as important anyway. As to what we have to discuss, Kent pointing out Cam Camper made the Kansas City Chiefs 53-man roster.
He means Cam Jones, by the way. Cam Camper's a current Indiana wide receiver.
I was just getting ready to say, boy, that's going to be tough to have him in the lineup against Ohio State this weekend. As soon as I said that, Freifogel, yeah, we have to check to see, but I think the dude's been killing it. I mean, Freifogel's not even been making rosters. He's been playing, man.
Who's he playing for? I didn't see Freifogel on the list of Indiana players that made rosters.
Was he with the Chiefs?
You could be thinking Hendershot. Hendershot made a roster. Micah McFadden made a roster.
Oh, you know what? I can't remember if I'm confusing Freifogel with Hendershot.
You could be thinking of Nick Westbrook.
And now stop and think all that talent Indiana had right there. All that talent that whether they make it or not, these are guys from 2 and 3 years ago. That's the problem. Indiana has guys from 2 and 3 years ago. That was the last true little push, and it was just a little push of players into the NFL. They don't have guys that are getting in there now. Well, if you don't, then you're not going to have a good team. Period. End of story. You have to have talent that's going into the NFL. I'm not saying you have to be leading it, of course. I mean, I hate that I have to do that to everything I say. If you don't, though, people are going to think you said this. But Indiana has to, you just have to have that kind of talent. And with the majority of their playing roster coming via the transfer portal, that should be happening more frequently. If it doesn't, there will not be sustained success. Without question. Yeah, where is K-Bro? Let's check on K-Bro. Let's check on K-Bro. See how K-Bro's doing in the yeah, that's kind of right in the area where that thing came through. Thinking about the hurricane there. Luckily, speaking of hurricanes, here comes one by the name of Dylan Sinn. He's as far removed from the hurricane as minus being in Canada. It's about as far away as you can get, man. We were talking about K-Bro, our old buddy Kevin Brockway. He's down in Gainesville, right in the heart of where that storm was coming through or went through, I believe.
Yeah, he down there covering Florida sports, getting ready for the football season. They play tomorrow. That's crazy.
Well, did they move that game?
Well, it was. I think it's scheduled to be in Utah.
Oh, they did move it to Utah, though, didn't they?
I don't know if it was moved there because they played in Florida last year. Remember? I'm pretty sure about that.
Well, then if it's Utah, then I would imagine it's a home and home.
Yeah, because remember they opened the season with Utah last year. Remember they had that game. Anthony Richardson made the kind of that crazy play where it was a 2-point conversion that they needed, and he rolled to his right and kind of like pump faked everyone. It faked out even the camera operator, and then ran it in himself. That was against Utah. So yeah, it was a home and home. They played in Florida last year, and they're in Provo this year.
Notre Dame. First of all, let's get Notre Dame out of the way. They played last week in week 0. I still don't understand this week 0 thing other than the money grab. But it is what it is. But a game that I didn't spend much time watching.
Sure.
Navy, they just destroyed them. First of all, if they're going to do this game over in Ireland, which I love that they do, it should be a game every year. It should be a couple of names. Like last year wasn't necessarily names, but they were both a big time Big Ten conference member, even though middling, they were comparable, and it was a hell of a game because of that. But also, you have, I think it should be 2 programs that both have good fan bases, solid fan bases.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the Fighting Irish traveled well. Why were they not going to Ireland? I think that would be cool as hell, having a game, an opening game over there. I think the Big Ten, you know what, of all conferences, who else besides the Big Ten to start opening up the season in Ireland every year? They do everything else. They're bi-coastal now. Let's make it international, baby.
Yeah, I mean and Navy does travel relatively well too. They had 50,000 fans at the stadium, 30,000 were Notre Dame fans, 20,000 were Navy, approximately. So Navy traveled well. Obviously, it is a military academy, so they have some experience sending people overseas. But yeah, and Navy is in a rough patch right now. When this game was scheduled, when this game was originally scheduled, it seemed like they were going to be pretty good because it was supposed to be for 2020. And remember, in 2019, Navy went 11-2. So it seemed like this game was going to be pretty good. They canceled it in 2020, moved it back a couple of years, and Navy has kind of fallen on hard times, breaking in a new coaching staff. But yeah, basically, Notre Dame just kind of ran through them, and that doesn't really tell you a whole lot about Notre Dame or how they're going to be this season. I know people are excited about Sam Hartman and how well he played, which he played well. I don't think we learned as much as people are kind of thinking because Notre Dame is just so much bigger along the front than Navy is. Navy's defensive front is undersized, to say the least. It always is. That's just kind of how it works as a service academy. But Notre Dame was just able to kind of get anything it wanted in the run game, and obviously that opened up the pass. And so, yeah, when you average 6 yards on first down, basically, you're going to win. It's pretty hard not to. I thought Notre Dame's linebackers played pretty well with the triple option. Navy was able to get them a couple of times, but for the most part, Notre Dame was able to stay disciplined against the triple option, which is good. They have veterans on that defense, but we didn't learn a whole lot about Notre Dame, I don't think.
Brian, how are you, sir? We appreciate you. Let's see. And then Rudy says they did look good, though.
They did.
Yeah, it's hard not to. Navy completely they've junked the triple option offense that they've ran for 1,000 years. Or did they still have some of it?
So no, I mean they ran it. They still ran the triple option. Don't get that confused. They still ran the triple option. The offensive coordinator they hired to lead the team this year is from Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State runs the triple option. It just adds some kind of short passing wrinkles to it. And there were some wrinkles to what Navy has done in the past, but they didn't throw the ball as much as I think that Navy fans wanted them to. They didn't open it up as much as they wanted to. I think the problem is that their quarterbacks, that they have not yet recruited a quarterback who can run a more pass-friendly offense. They have a couple guys in there, neither of whom has completed 50% of their passes in college. And so they tried throwing a couple times. Notre Dame was so keyed on the run that Navy was able to get behind the defense a couple times, but the quarterback just couldn't make the play one time where they had a wide open guy that could have been a touchdown. And then another time they had two wide open guys and the ball was there, and the receivers collided with each other like it was a baseball pair of outfielders colliding, trying to catch a fly ball where they both could have had it. And either one of them could have had a 40-yard gain in the play, but they kind of knocked it out of each other's hands. So there's some growing pains there with that offense, but there was some fun wrinkles. They got Notre Dame a couple times with the option stuff. But for the most part, yeah, it was Notre Dame was kind of living in the backfield and just chasing Navy down sideline to sideline with superior speed from their linebackers.
Well, and we've got week 1 of official starting the season this week. The real season starts, and it'll be games aplenty because not only is the NFL not going, the NFL is broadcasting a ton of games on the NFL Network. So whether it's HBCU games or whatever, there's just a litany of games where you will be able to start finding them. I'm surprised they didn't have a Tuesday game this week. I really am. Remember the old ACC Tuesday night games because they couldn't get on any other day?
Yeah. Well, and it's cool because there's going to be basically, because it's Labor Day weekend, they're stretching the season, the week out toward over the weekend.
Dude,
so
it's going to last like 5 days.
Yeah, there's games Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and
Yes.
the best game of the week is on Sunday, which is funny. So
Who's that?
that is Florida State LSU. That is a banger, absolute banger. Should be a lot of fun.
So is Florida State to be trusted?
I think they are. I mean, they finished last season strong, and they bring.
Don't
back,
they have to be? Don't they almost have to come out and play just because of the administration chirping?
Yeah, there's some extra pressure on them, but I think they'll live up to it. I mean, they finished last season with 6 straight wins. They went 10-3, their best year in a while, and they bring back basically everyone, and they added some transfers who are good too. They have a 6th-year quarterback. They have 2 receivers who are awesome. Johnny Wilson might be the best non-Marvin Harrison receiver in the country. If you don't know his name, know it. They are going to be really, really good, but so is LSU. These are 2 teams. Basically, I would expect the winner of this game to make the playoff, and the loser might too. Basically, the loser would have to run the table, but I wouldn't be surprised if both of them ended up making it when it comes out in the wash later in the season.
Well, we've obviously got games of interest to watch this weekend. Purdue is taking on the former team of Kalen DeBoer.
That's right.
The Fighting Bulldogs of is it Fresno State? I couldn't get it out. I was drawing a blank there for a second.
I can see your mind working there. Jim.
The hamster wheels were turning. There's too many schools out there. San Jose State, Fresno State, just who knows? Yeah, there's thousands. But Purdue's non-con schedule, while I don't even know what Fresno has right now. They probably have fallen off since Kalen left and whatnot. But after that, they play a Syracuse team, which I don't know how good they are, but they're not. It's not like they're playing an SEC non-conference schedule, I'll call it. They're not playing Troy. They're not playing Sanford, and not Stanford, but Samford. They're playing a serious non-con schedule, and they have Notre Dame coming onto the schedule. When does that start next year?
Well, they played last year. 2021 they played, and then they have a return trip to West Lafayette in a couple of years. I'm not sure exactly when. But yeah, because they used to play Notre Dame every year. If you remember, they played basically every year up until 2014, and then they stopped, and they played again in 21 in South Bend. So they have a return trip to West Lafayette at some point. I can't remember exactly, but in terms of Purdue's schedule this year, I could see them going 3-0 in the non-con, and I could see them going 0-3 because we don't know what Purdue is going to be, and we also don't know what any of the teams on their non-conference are going to be. You mentioned Fresno State. Fresno State went 10-4 last year. They won the Mountain West. They started 1-4, and then
the Mountain West, who was the only hope for the Pac-12 survival.
That's right.
So literally, they could be playing the Pac-12 quasi-champion.
That's right. But Fresno State lost a lot. Their quarterback, Jake Haener, who was one of the best players in school history up there, which is saying a lot. They have a long history, but Jake Haener now plays for the New Orleans Saints. He was a 4th-round pick. So they're going to take a step back, but they still have a really good defense. And Jeff Tedford, their coach, has a history of churning out competent, good teams every year, even when they're down. So that's a question mark. And then the next week, Notre Dame plays Virginia Tech, which was terrible last year in its first season under a new coach, and seems like it might be kind of rough again this year. But it's Virginia Tech, and that's never easy. And they're going to Blacksburg, which is one of the toughest places to play in college football. And then, like you mentioned Syracuse. They host Syracuse after losing to them last year. And again, Syracuse started 6-0 last year, finished 7-6. I have no idea what they're going to be. They have a good quarterback and a good receiver in Aronde Gadsden. I could see 0-3 for Purdue, and I could see 3-0. And I think we're going to learn a lot in these first 3 weeks, even before we get to conference play.
Yeah, Purdue, people probably didn't think this last year. I wasn't thinking about it. Of course, that was not my first coverage spot, but they're not coming into the season in great shape, not horrible shape, but not the shape that they'd like to be, because coaching change, anytime you have a coaching change, it's a lot of change. That means you've also got a lot of player personnel change, and they didn't just lose a great coaching staff that had been there for 5-6 years. They also lost their best quarterbacks. They lost their best prospect. Their former best quarterback is at Louisville right now. So I don't even know. And it's going to be a change in offense. They are still a very offensively minded staff, with Graham Harrell being under the kind of the Mike Leach tree of sorts. We've talked about that. Not completely an air raid type of deal, but Jeff Brom's was not an air raid deal, although he loved to throw the ball, being a former quarterback, and his brother was on staff. Ironically, earlier I spoke about the top 10 paid people in the state were from either IU or public universities, were from IU or Purdue. Jeff Brom was number one. Brian Brom was up in there.
Yeah. They made sure, because I mean, Brian Brom obviously is a former quarterback himself, a 12 year
NFL quarterback, man.
Oh yeah, and so he would have opportunities. They wanted to keep him around, but no, Purdue they lost a lot. They lost obviously a ton from last year's team. Aiden O'Connell's gone. Charlie Jones is gone. Payne Durham is gone. They were going to have all 5 of their offensive linemen from last year back, 4 of whom had one honorable mention All Big Ten, but they lost 2 of those to the transfer portal in the offseason. So that was tough. They brought in Hudson Card to play quarterback, the former Texas quarterback. I think he's really good, and they seem to be really excited about him. Whenever he was in the game at Texas, he always looked more than competent. The only reason he left Texas was because obviously you have 2 number 1 recruits in the same quarterback room, so he was probably not going to play very often. So he came up to Purdue. They are excited about him. The problem for Purdue is that they suffered some pretty significant attrition during the preseason. They lost who they hoped would be one of their best wide receivers to an ACL tear. That was the Florida Atlantic transfer, Jamal Adreen. They lost Jamari Brown, their starting corner, at a position they were already thin. He transferred a week before the season to Mississippi State. That I don't know about that. He's a grad transfer, so he's allowed to do that. And I guess if that's where you want to be, that's where you want to be. But weird situation there. And then they're going into this season, their center, who's their best offensive lineman, or one of their best offensive linemen, because they have several good ones, is Gus Hartwig. He was All Big Ten last year. He tore his ACL against Northwestern at the end of last season. He is not going to be ready for the start of the year. So that's a huge blow for them. They were hoping to have him kind of anchoring things up front, and he will not be. So they suffered some pretty significant attrition during fall camp, and they're not quite in the position I think they thought they would be when the season began. And so it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy road, I think, at the start for Ryan Walters, because it's not only the offense that's new, it's the defense, which is obviously Ryan Walters' calling card. That's why they hired him, and was this new defensive structure that he brought that made Illinois last year one of the best defenses in the entire country, right? That's huge. That doesn't happen. And so he brought that to Purdue, and he during the offseason really tried to change over the defense and make it into his own image. And that's going to take some time, I think. I don't think it's going to be a quick, immediately dominant defense. I think it's going to take some time to gel, because that defense, it's a lot of one-on-one matchups, and there's a lot of things that go into it, and I think it's going to take some time.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio from all of these stations right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market for a new... From all these stations. I don't know what the hell that meant. For those of you on the Andy Moore Honda hotline having trouble with the fantasy pick'em, which I need to mention again, it is super, super, super easy. You just go to ESPN.com, and once that page pulls up, it's the normal ESPN page. Over on the upper right, there are multiple tabs: watch, listen, and then fantasy. And then on that drop-down tab, you will see College Pick'em 2023. You hit that, and then there are make picks, groups, or leaderboard. You hit the groups. Right below that is a search bar, and you just put in Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Boom. Go in, create your deal, make your picks. Dylan, I need to have you. You should do that. Seriously, we'll do a pros against the Joes.
Okay. Well, what is
Kind of
this?
thing.
Is this college or is this
College?
Okay.
It's just college. Just like I said, you just go into the ESPN their website page, and it's just on the top over to the right, fantasy, and then they have a 2023 or college pick'em 2023, and then you just look up Indiana Sports Beat Radio under groups.
Okay.
I've got my picks made. I did pick the Boilers over the Fresno State Bulldogs.
Okay.
It's a straight pick too. No spread. I'm like, okay, wow, that makes.
Let's see.
Bill, it's not one word. It's Indiana Sports Beat Radio, separated under that group.
Is there a group password?
Oh yes, there is.
Yeah.
B-Town 2023
with the capital B.
I forgot about that.
There we go. All right, I have joined Jim.
See how fast that guy was, guys? Bam! It's that easy.
By the way,
we're going to have a contest. I got to get Dustin on it. I've got to get John. You have got to get on it because we're going to have a separate contest, and anybody that beats us, you get stuff.
All right,
here we go, guys.
Building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday, August 29th. It is game week. Week one of the college football season 2023 has arrived. What games are you looking forward to most? Indiana starting off with it ain't exactly a schoolyard tussle, man. This is a back alley brawl. As the Ohio State Buckeyes, one of the favorites to go to the college football playoffs. Michigan is still the team that is getting the buzz in the Big Ten. Even with Jim Harbaugh's suspension, everybody sees Michigan as the team in the Big Ten right now.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, not everyone, because Vegas has Ohio State with the best odds to win the conference. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, Harbaugh's suspension is only for the first 3 games. They're heavily favored in the first 3. I do.
Oh, yeah, the high school games?
Yeah, I think they're going to struggle in those games. I think that they've handled it poorly. They're having a different coach for each of the 3 games. They're letting someone on staff coach each of the 3 as head coach. I think they're going to struggle, and it's just bad work for me. But they have a lot back from last year's team that obviously was very, very good. They bring back Blake Corum, who is one of the best running backs in the country. They bring back Donovan Edwards, who is also one of the best running backs in the country. They have almost everyone back along one of the best offensive lines in the country, except for the center, and they brought in another center. So Mason Graham on the defensive front is an absolute monster at tackle, and Will Johnson is one of the best cornerbacks in the country. So there's pieces there. I think they'll be very, very good. They shouldn't be tested until November when they play Penn State. So they might be 9-0, and we don't know how good they are. I expect that both Penn State and Ohio State are better this year, would be my guess, but I've been wrong before.
Indiana and Ohio State Saturday. I don't even know what they are right now as far as an underdog, 29.5, 30 points, something like
Somewhere
that.
in there, yeah.
And I'm sure that's mainly because the bookies do not know Indiana's kicker and a quarterback, of course. But no, just all joking aside, I don't know. I'm still, if I bet, I'm thinking that I would take Indiana and the points. First game, new quarterback for Ohio State. I think Indiana is improved at every single spot, but it's almost hard for them not to be. They'll definitely be improved at quarterback because they're going to be improved on the offensive line, which means their running game is going to be improved, which will in turn allow you to potentially have a passing game. These things are all interrelated, and it all started with the offensive line. You can't do jack. It's like saying, hey, I want you to walk out of your living room into the street. Well, you can't do that if you can't open the front door. And Indiana couldn't even open the front door to walk outside.
Yeah. Now
Now that's there. I'm not saying that they have this line that's going to kick Ohio State's butt, but I think that they could do enough. I think toward the end of the game that Ohio State will be running in their 2s and their 3s, maybe some 4s. I don't know. But Indiana's not. They need – I think the starting quarterback is going to be Brendan Sorsby. I've stuck with that. I've said it for 6 weeks. But I think they stick with him through the entire game because he needs the reps. Whoever it is needs the reps.
Yeah.
They don't need to split anything. And I think that they may be able to score, a little toward the end, enough to keep it inside of there. So I'm looking at that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't in good conscience tell anyone to bet this game one way or the other, just because we both teams have so many unknowns. But the Ohio State is interesting because if they have a weakness, it's in the secondary. At least historically, at least the last couple of years under Ryan Day. And that's where IU could make some noise with some of the receivers they have. So I do think that there's an opportunity for IU to score 20 to 25 points, somewhere in there. I think that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. I do think
that's being generous. You're being more generous than I was.
I think Indiana has playmakers. Now, where I disagree with you, Indiana is not much improved in the back end on defense. In fact, I think they're going to be significantly worse in the back end on defense, and they were not good last year. And
How much worse can they be?
They can be worse. They had some guys back there with experience last year, and now they don't. At least not experience with IU.
In the secondary, you mean in the defensive secondary?
Yeah. I mean, you're losing 3 guys who were all Big Ten guys, and you're replacing them with guys who are transfers who have never played here before. And they might be good. Some of the guys that they brought in have track records of playing, but they're losing a lot of experience there. And so with that combined with the fact that Ohio State has the best receiving core in the country by a pretty wide margin, I think Ohio State.
Aren't they like 5th or 6th in the NFL?
They would be. Like Marvin Harrison would be a top 5 receiver in the NFL right now, and not his dad. Him. He would be a top 5 receiver in the NFL right now. He is an absolute monster. Emeka Egbuka is probably the 2nd or 3rd best receiver in the entire country, and he's second on his own team. And then they have some freshmen who are also very good. So I don't know. It might be rough. So
where are you going to be this weekend?
I will be at Purdue for the first game of the Ryan Walters era. That game is at noon, so maybe if that game is kind of a blowout at halftime, if Purdue somehow goes up 3 or 4 touchdowns at halftime, maybe I leave and I head to Bloomington. We'll see. You never know. You never know.
What time is the Purdue? Is it a noon game?
Purdue is a noon kick, so that's something that could happen. You never know.
Absolutely. The double dip. Oh, we got to see the double dip from Dylan.
What I'm saying is, you don't know my location. Don't try to find me. I'm in the wind. Okay.
Secret.
That's
safe.
right.
Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. Thanks, brother. We appreciate you.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me on. By the way, before I go, I should say Utah is not in Provo. It is in Salt Lake City. That is my bad. Utah fans, please don't yell at me.
There you go. Got you straight. More Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming up from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
I could have went on, man. I love when you're on. I could go on as a while.
I'm glad. But yeah, I'll be at Purdue on Saturday, so should be fun. I think that game's gonna be close. I think it'll be fun.
I'd love to get it to where you could co-host on Wednesdays, because I've been trying to get. There's a guy I have on Fridays for Purdue. You're a multi Purdue and Notre Dame, because you cover all of them. Plus, we're on in Fort Wayne up there on 1380, which I'm sure the Journal Gazette has to like that.
Yeah.
Free publicity.
That's
for
right.
The Fort Wayne Journal Gazette. But yeah, if you could ever work that out, especially if it's them, say, hey, this is actually work. I'm doing promotion for you all.
Yeah. Let's keep it the way it is now. A couple segments for now. And I'll see if I can get my schedule straightened out, and we can talk about hosting down the road. Okay.
Or just the first hour, because that's the hour we're on in Fort Wayne.
Okay. Yeah. Let me try to make sure that basically my schedule works out for that. And I'll let you know. Okay.
And Kyle Neddenriep, well, he joins us in the next hour, so it doesn't matter. Never mind.
Supposed to be right now. I just thought about that.
But anyway, that would be great. Yeah, that would be awesome.
All right. Sounds good, Jim. I'm going to go make my picks, okay?
Appreciate you, buddy.
All right. Have a good one.
Thank you. Dylan Sinn. Make sure you give him a follow. Follow his content. He covers Purdue, Notre Dame, and IU. We bring it all to you. I guess I'm going to have to get a Notre Dame guy on. Yeah, that would be awesome, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
You sounded so excited. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know that I agree with Dustin or Dylan on that. I think that I think that they may be better in the defensive secondary. I think that these transfers may end up being better. I think that maybe having a front line is going to be more helpful. We'll see.
All right, here we go.
Stressful. Whether we quote you just for catering or a total event package, you can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of Wow Food Group. This segment is brought to you by The Ugly Grouper. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. It is August 29th, and Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star joined us, and high school football is fully in underway. Kyle, how are you, sir?
Good. How you doing, Jim?
Cannot complain. You guys are in. Is this week 2?
Going into week 3.
Yeah, it blows my mind every time. They're always so far ahead of everybody, and I cannot believe that. So let's see, is that a third? How many games do they play in high school now? Still 10?
They play. Basically, everybody plays 10. You get 9 regular season, then you get one more. 10 games. So we're about, 20% through for some teams.
It's crazy. Though. Oh no, your season ends in 2036, I think, something like that. It seems like. But so the start at the top, Class A, 6A, Center Grove, playing probably one of the toughest schedules in the country. They're 1-1 already on the season. They lost their opener to St. Edward of Ohio, but man, they're playing some. They play 6A Tennessee state champion Oakland, and they beat them 28-10. Is that right?
I was there for the St. Edward game, and that team's ranked in the top 10 in the country, and they're huge up front. And then Center Grove came back and beat the 3-time defending champ out of Tennessee last week, 28-10. And that team I don't think was quite as physical. Maybe they might have been more physical, but they weren't as talented overall as St. Edward. I heard they were. I wasn't at that game, but I heard they were pretty physical, actually. Hard hitting team, but they couldn't throw the ball very well. And Center Grove's pretty darn good. So they handled that one 28-10, and I'm still ranking them number 1. I know Ben Davis right now is ranked number 1 actually in the AP poll, but I've still been putting Center Grove number 1. I don't think losing to a number 8 team in the country should probably move you down necessarily, especially based on what they've done the last 3 years. But I'm certainly open to that opinion because Ben Davis is really good.
That's the one thing I've never understood about writers. It's almost automatic. When you lose a game, they ding you. It doesn't even matter what poll, except for every now and then you'll see that they don't. I'm like, why this one? I mean, you've had 10 other opportunities where you did it. But yes, I agree with you full-hearted.
Yeah, that's always been a pet peeve of mine as well. It's like, and I sometimes, when I post my stuff, sometimes I'll get that feedback, and it's like, man, I don't rank teams based off, if you lose, I don't necessarily drop you. Now, if you're, it depends on the situation, but I always, it's like, why not just schedule the easiest teams possible and you'd be ranked number, it's just that to me, it doesn't work that way. So
plus that's because you see these teams, how good they are. 80% of the people that vote never see the teams they're voting on play.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't see everybody play either, but you kind of have to assess who's playing who. And
by everybody, you mean every single student. You might not see every single student play, but you see about every single team. There's got to be some crazy talent on this Center Grove team.
There's really, there is Tyler Cherry at quarterback, who's going to Duke, is very good, and Noah Coy, his top receiver, is going to play baseball at Cincinnati, and he is even in that St. Edward game, I was like, man, this guy, he's a special athlete, and he doesn't look like he's probably 5'9" maybe, and he looks like, kind of that Edelman type, I would say, type of a receiver. But yeah, man, he's tough. He belongs on the field even against a top 10 team in the country. But their defense is just really solid. They're kind of that prototypical program. They probably don't have their most talented team this year, I would say, from a Division I standpoint. They've had, the Caden Curry team in 21, that was probably about as talented a team as they've had. That defensive line was incredible. But obviously they have talent, and but they're more of a program. They build it up from the bottom up, and they're used to winning right now, and I think that goes a long way. I like I said, I don't know if this team may lose another game, or they play Louisville Trinity this week, who's very good every year. But yeah, they're just they know what they are, and I think that's kind of that takes them a long way.
Was there a bigger game in the state last week than the Cathedral Brownsburg game, and more exciting game from the looks of it, a 45-31 win by Brownsburg over Cathedral?
Yeah, that's the game I covered, and Brownsburg I thought really dominated the second half. I wrote about their quarterback Jake Dunn, who I think a lot of people had questions about. He just hadn't played. He was a backup last year, and their running back Garrett Sherrill is very good. Their line is very good. I thought this would be a close game. I picked Brownsburg to win in a close one, but they really, even Bill Peebles, the Cathedral coach, said after the game, they really handled it. They, to paraphrase, they Cathedral lost by 2 touchdowns. It felt like more than that after watching the second half. And Danny O'Neill threw for almost 400 yards. It didn't even feel like he played his best game. So that speaks to Danny, his talent going to Colorado. But they've got to get better. I mean, Cathedral's got to get better in the secondary. They really struggled there, and I think they will get better. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a coming out a little bit for Brownsburg to show, what they could be. I don't know that I don't think they're a team that's necessarily going to go undefeated. Maybe they will, but I don't necessarily see that. I think there's some tough games out there they could lose. But I think, having a balanced offense is so key. Anymore, you just can't, most of the time, you just can't line up and run it against the top 6A teams. So you have to have a quarterback who can get the ball to your athletes on the perimeter. And Brownsburg has a guy named Corey Smith who's going to Minnesota, who's really dynamic. He made a couple of really nice catches on Friday, one up the sideline, just caught it on his fingertips. Yeah, I don't know how he caught that ball, but hauled it in. It was a big gain. It was a 3rd down pickup that they needed at the time and turned into a touchdown. So you need those. You need a guy who can get the ball, those playmakers, and I think they have that with Jake Dunn. So I was impressed with Brownsburg. I'm probably more coming away than I expected. So I think they're a legit, I didn't know if they were, but I would put them in that mix with some of those other top teams right now. And I think Cathedral's there too. I think at the end of the day, when you have a quarterback like Danny O'Neill, you're in that discussion. Like I said, they have to get better, but I wouldn't count them out of winning again. And, last year they lost.
Where would you put them up to Center Grove?
What's that, Jim? Sorry.
What about comparing Brownsburg and Center Grove?
Yeah, I think that would be a good game. The thing about Brownsburg is they just haven't won it all. That last year I think was a really good chance for them to potentially go on and win a state championship. They had that type of team. Their quarterback, Jaden Whitaker, got hurt. He still played in the tournament, but he wasn't 100%. And Cathedral ended up beating him in the regional 14-7. But, like I said, if you can, I think there's still some questions about Brownsburg just because they haven't done it before. But, and Ben Davis, honestly, that's a game that will happen eventually in the sectional. So, that's what it'll come down to. Can they beat Ben Davis? And then anything after that, if you can beat them, then you'll have a chance. Same for Ben Davis. Brownsburg beat him last year in the sectional. If they can beat Brownsburg, I would say they can beat about anybody out there. So I don't know. It's pretty 6A is always, I love covering 6A football. It's fascinating to me. I think these top teams are so fun to cover, and there's a lot of really good teams right now. So I always, I like covering all the size of schools, but 6A is always really interesting.
Absolutely. What's what is going on this week that you're focused on?
Well, I went out and saw a young man play soccer last night named Flory Badunga, and
is he playing on his soccer team?
Yeah. I posted some video highlights and stuff last night on Twitter. I haven't written yet anything, but I was just curious. Out of my curiosity, I drove up to West Lafayette. They played Kokomo, went over there last night, and West Side, West Lafayette, they're always good soccer, have a really good team. Kokomo lost 4-1, but I came away from that. Florey's really good at soccer. You know, he this is kind of what it's in his
But did
blood.
he grew up? Yeah, did he grow up playing soccer?
He played soccer since he could walk, he said, you know, and so that you know, that part of him is just in his blood, and he's 6'9". So he scored on a header, and he scored, I think, every game they've played except for one, other coach was telling me. So he's legit good. You know, he's a legit good soccer player. Like, his ball skills are really good. He has a really good understanding of the game, way more than I do. I'm out there watching. I don't know what I'm watching necessarily, but I like soccer. You know, it's fun to cover. I don't know the intricacies of it, but
it's a lot more fun when you learn the rules. I can tell you that, because I used to always hate it. And my daughter played soccer, so I was forced to learn the rules. And once I did, you gain a great more respect, and especially watching it at a higher level. Not the World Cup where they're flopping, but but anyway, yes, learning the rules changed my appreciation for soccer.
Yeah, I didn't know anything. My kids both played through, you know, they got to age 8, and I was like, I can't coach because I don't know the rules. But after watching it, I was, you know, really enjoyed it. I like watching soccer. But again, you know, I can tell he knows what he's doing out there. And, you know, he's probably one of their 2 best players, I would say. And, you know, very fast. You know, that's something you notice. And, you know, there's one clip I had where he kind of kicked it out to a teammate and then just ran down the field. It was kind of like, it reminded me of like his outlet pass. You know, he outlet passes and runs to the block. I mean, that's kind of the idea, is get him in the box and, you know, try to use his height and his physical nature in the middle of that offense. But, you know, they, like I said, they lost. It was tough. You know, I might go watch them again in a game that they may have a better chance to win. But yeah, I think he scored in every game but one. They're not great. I think they're about 500 or right around there. But yeah, and he loves it. You know, that's, you know, it's his favorite sport, you know. So as good as he is at basketball, I mean, this is, if you grow up with something and love it, I mean, that's kind of just within you. So I had a blast watching it. It was a good time.
Oh yeah, I would have thought he'd have been a hell of a goalie.
That's what everybody asks. And
6'8", got that wingspan. I mean, come on, man.
I asked him that immediately because we talked this summer, and he said he was going to play. I got a lot of feedback when people says like, "Oh wow, he's gonna play soccer." I was like, and not goalie. I asked him that too. He's like, "Nope, I'm a striker." So he's you know, he's doing it out there.
Last thing before I let you go, we got what do you call this? Not a soul patch. What do we got? What is this on the chin whiskers?
That's just me being lazy.
No, come on. It looks good, man. It looks good. I dig it. It looks good. I just don't know it's not a soul patch. I don't know what you call that. Everything's got a name. All this stuff has a name, and I don't know any of them, but it looks good, brother.
I don't put labels on things, Jim.
There you go, baby. Mr. Independence. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star. Make sure you're giving him a follow and keeping up with all this content. He's got all the stars coming up. Next in college, they're playing high school right now. Kyle, thank you very much, brother.
All right, thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
You betcha. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star here, brought to you by our good friends from Hank's Pizza Mac, a part of the Wow Food Group. Up next, Rick Bozich will join us, packed with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Breaking news, Ohio State has not named their kicker yet.
I guess that's a way to get people to talk about your program.
I don't know that it's in a good way.
Yeah.
But, and you also you cannot lay an egg. You don't have to win, but you cannot lay an egg either.
What do you mean? What's laying an egg, like 54-7?
Yes. kicker misses 3 field goals.
Let me ask you this question. With all the players that are on the team and they all know who the quarterback is, nobody's leaked it out on social media?
Not on social media, no.
Wow. Or on message boards or anything? It's crazy. Crazy.
We'll see if Jim's right. Jim's been on. I have not deviated for 6 weeks or better.
And who do you have it as, Taven?
Sorsby.
Do you?
Yeah.
Why?
Just early on talking to people, I just figured I had to go with a side one way or another, and my conversations just led me to that side. That doesn't mean that those conversations did not have someone saying, "Oh, he's starting," but it was just about different things in practice. There's definitely no huge separation. But everybody thinks that you're going to see both, and I don't. I think it's going to be whomever it is. I think they're going to ride him because he needs the reps, and all the way through the end of the game, maybe not the very last series or two, but that's when the best reps will be gotten because you've got guys in there that aren't as good.
Right.
And hopefully Indiana can score points because I think I'll bet Indiana and take the points.
It's 3:30. Is that what it is on Saturday?
3:30 kickoff on CBS, baby.
What's the
CBS
weather
is
supposed to
first.
be?
Spectacular. High of 86 or so.
All right, here we go, guys.
At the golf club at Eagle Point, students can play for the rest of 2023 for just $299. That's right. Play as many rounds as you like for just $299. That's better than a birdie. But you don't have to be a student to play at Eagle Point. Go online to set your tee time or call 812-824-4040. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. That means the great Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Make sure you are giving him a follow. If you're not, you're missing out on complete coverage of all things sports. Man, there's a lot of crossover today, Rick, with week 1 of college football, the NFL getting down to the 53-man roster. I saw New England cut all their quarterbacks except for one, which was weird because 2 of them are good. They're either going to try to re-sign one or both of them back, I think, for a cheaper money. But Malik Cunningham, the former Louisville quarterback, one of those, I kept hearing he was having a great camp, and he'll probably latch on somewhere but he's also such a versatile player.
Yeah, I think he had a good half in an exhibition game, and because he played 1 quarter at receiver and 1 at quarterback, I think that created some buzz. I agree with you. I think they'll try and get him on the practice squad. They've got only Mac Jones left, right? Then they also cut Bailey Zappi from Western Kentucky. So I don't know. Malik Cunningham, I think he can play in the NFL as sort of a what do they call those things? Utility knife guy, where he's do a little bit of, maybe return, receiver, special situation quarterback, whatever. The only question I have about Malik is he's a little bit undersized. He's not as big as Lamar. And, he did take some injuries when he was at Louisville. So I'm not sure how he would hold up in the NFL.
And speaking of Louisville quarterbacks, a crossover with IU. Nate Sudfeld, former IU quarterback Nate Sudfeld, tears his ACL as a backup at Detroit. Unfortunately for him, but Detroit had signed Teddy Bridgewater, who had destroyed his knee in a non-contact injury. Yeah, just backing up. But He fought. What did it take him 2 years to get back?
2 years before he was really functional. Yeah.
But still, man, you got to give somebody credit to go through all that. But anyway, he's in Detroit. Also, Antoine Randall, I believe, is the receivers coach at Detroit.
Wow. Antoine Randall, there's a memory. Back when he was at IU, there was a lot of optimism that he could change the world. So,
yeah, running at wide receiver.
Yeah, that was the last year. That was Cam Cameron's final bad move as the IU head coach. But I think IU could use Antoine Randall this year.
They could use a bunch of Antoine Randall this year. Speaking of which, Indiana, the quarterback position. I'm just guessing Brendan Sorsby. At this point, I don't know that it matters whether Ohio State knows or not. There's no film on either of these guys. I don't know if they would have to do some kind of FBI file so they could file stuff on them. I don't know that Ohio State cares that much about who Indiana's going to be playing at quarterback. But, I mean, I know they all care to some degree, but they're just focusing on themselves. They've got the best receiving core. I just had Dylan Sinn on, and he's worried that Indiana's defensive backfield may not be quite as good as it was last year. And I'm like, well, that would not be good because they're playing against the 5th or 6th best receiving core in the NFL this weekend with Ohio State.
Yeah, they got 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, it's going. But Ohio State has a new quarterback, so they've got some difference. It's the first game. I just hope Indiana can make it competitive. It's going to be interesting to see what the offense does, what they're capable of doing. And it will be interesting to see who they have named as quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in that. And I wish they'd go ahead and just say who it is. And it's like, how many years have we gone through this now? At least 3 in a row or 3 out of 4, whatever it was. I know it was this way last year. And I guess the year before we knew it was going to probably be Penix, even though he was coming off the injury. But I'll say several things about it. One is you're probably better off in some ways to be the backup because the starter's going to get dogged out there, and then people are going to be crying for the backup to come in. He's going to become the immediate answer to the questions. And secondly is I'm much more interested in how does Indiana's offensive line perform? Because I don't care if it's Lamar Jackson or Tom Brady or Joe Montana.
That's right.
If they have the same kind of offensive line play they've had for the last couple of years, it doesn't matter. The quarterback hasn't had time to really get back in the pocket, get comfortable, and look downfield and make his reads and deliver the balls because he's not always, but often been under duress. And so you've got some veterans back on the offensive line. You've got a new offensive line coach that earned respect for the job he did at Wisconsin. And I want to see how does the offensive line hold up. If it's better, then there's reason to believe Indiana can have an improved season this year because I do think I don't have any idea what the quarterback's going to be. I do have reason to believe the running backs could be pretty good because Henderson was pretty good last year. I've seen the kid from Wake Forest play. He's pretty good. We know Lucas is pretty good. So I think, too much talk about the quarterback and not enough talk about what's the offensive line going to do.
It all starts and stops right there. I mentioned that without the whole reason Indiana was able to go up and shock the world and beat Michigan State last year by throwing nearly 0 passes for 90% of the game was because Rod Carey took over the offensive line and gave them a little juice, a little something, enough to get by a bad and enough to get by a team that was not as good as they are, which tells you that there were other teams they probably should have beaten had that been the case early on. And that's why, and I have some optimism for IU fans on Indiana being anywhere from a 4 to 6 win team. 7 would be shock, but yeah, I can see them winning 6 games. It all is dependent upon this offensive line, though, without question. And if they have a decent line there, then yeah, man, I think that there's reason for optimism along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching Indiana Ohio State games for 50 years, okay? And it's a bit of an oversimplification, but the reason Ohio State beats Indiana and so many other teams in the Big Ten, the reason Alabama and Georgia are really good is because they have better players on the offensive and defensive lines. Indiana's had a tremendous number of decent running backs, receivers, defensive backs, but in terms of dudes on the offensive and defensive lines, they don't have as many. And Ohio State has them stacked up, first team, second team. You look at Ohio State's roster. Last year, they had 3 of the best high school offensive linemen that have come out of Indiana in the last 4 or 5 years. Where are they at? They're not at Indiana. They're at Ohio State. This year, they got the Fryer kid starting to tackle, and the Floyd Central kid, I think, is the second team dude. Ohio State just lines up and controls the line of scrimmage and runs the ball down Indiana's throat, or they protect the quarterback well enough where he can sit back there comfortably and find his receivers. And on defense, they rush the passer and make Indiana uncomfortable, and Indiana can't run the ball against them. So if the offensive line can give them some chance, they're not going to beat Ohio State, but that gives me reason to believe they can beat some other Big Ten teams. The same thing on defense. You look on the defensive line, it's all new dudes. It's the kid from Western Michigan. It's the kid from West Virginia. It's the kid from Texas Tech. It's the kid from Texas A&M, who are all coming in here, and we don't know how good they are. They weren't stars at where they were before. They wouldn't have left, and we're going to see how well they can play. Whereas Ohio State has guys on their defensive front who were 5-star dudes who came out of high school and who are already being touted as first-round NFL draft picks. It's not that complicated. I mean, you got to have dudes on the offensive and defensive line who perform for your team to have a chance, and that's what Indiana hasn't had.
And the transfer portal is probably the best thing that's ever happened the best thing to happen to Indiana football in 40 years, because they can get, because they're a Big Ten team, they can get these cast-offs that, when I say cast-off, that does not mean a negative connotation. That means guys that are either, hey, man, I got screwed over here at Auburn or wherever that is. They were big-time selections. So now, and as I'm looking forward, I asked this yesterday, if we get to the point where, and I know that we will, where revenue sharing is a real thing in the Big Ten, if that is done equally I don't know, it would have to be, I guess. If that is distributed equally, wouldn't that give Indiana some equality in football to be able to offer players of a similar?
Yeah, I don't know. That would be an NIL situation. Indiana's going to have to improve its NIL game in football to attract the kind of guys, that the bigger name schools recruit. I know,
but wouldn't revenue distribution make that almost?
The revenue distribution would go more towards facilities and coaching staffs and all that kind of stuff. Unless
I thought they're talking about for players.
Well, I don't know if the schools are going to start paying players. Then that would be the case, and that was Harbaugh's thing yesterday, I guess. But I've heard good things about the Carter. It's a Carter's kid who came from Western Michigan, who's on the defensive line. You got Linnell Carr that comes in from West Virginia. You got the kid from Stanford who's a linebacker. I think it's Bleedy. Is he on the defensive line? Who's from Texas Tech. Got Marcus Burris, who has a high recruit at Texas A&M, who's on the defensive line. These are all guys who, except for the kid at Western Michigan, who was a stud in the MAC, were all guys who started out at more football schools than IU. It didn't work out there. And now they're going to come to Indiana, and you find out are they guys that got a bad deal where they were, or they weren't as good as their recruiting ranking said they were? Because they have some left over from last year. They have Miles Jackson, the kid who came in from UCLA, and Jared Casey, the linebacker from Kentucky, and they're dependent on a lot of guys. They got a defensive back from Texas. I mean, they got guys who've come in from football schools. Now we'll see if they can play.
Absolutely. And if the scheme is right, if the calls are right, the coaching has to be right. And we'll find out with a 3:30 kickoff. Louisville, they play Friday. This is the greatest college football other than the bowl season. It starts and ends with a bang in college football. 5 straight days we get.
Right.
I said earlier to Dylan, I'm surprised we're not having Tuesday games like the old AAC games.
We will. We're going to have some. Louisville plays Friday this week and Thursday next week. Yeah, I'm leaving in the morning. Tomorrow morning, we're going down to Atlanta. Louisville's home opener is next Thursday against Murray State. But the start of the Jeff Brom era is Friday night in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium against Georgia Tech. Cards are favored by 7.5, and it's a game that IU fans should pay attention to because 2 weeks from now we'll be talking about the IU Louisville game. And we both talk about Indiana getting to 6 wins and making the bowl eligible. I'd say almost any path, not all, but most paths you would make for IU to get to 6 wins are going to require a victory
win over Louisville. Yep.
Yeah.
And Louisville are, besides the Notre Dame game on October 7th at home, will probably be favored in every game that they're going to on their schedule, it looks like.
Yeah. I mean, NC State, they could be an underdog. NC State's not bad. That's the game before Notre Dame.
It's a road game. A road game too.
It's a road game. Yeah, they got Georgia Tech, Murray State, Indiana, and then Boston College, which is bad. So they should be 4-0, and then they got to win Friday night game at NC State, so they could be 5-0 in Notre Dame, which looked good against Navy. And that if both those schools are undefeated when that game's here, that's going to be happening. They'll sell this place out again.
What you've been around long enough? When Louisville and Indiana play, which that's 2 weeks from now, up in
2 weeks from Saturday.
Who do you think is going to win the attendance award?
Louisville. Their fans are more into football than IU fans are, I think. They're more optimistic. You got a new coach who's a former University of Louisville player. Optimism is at a high level. IU fans were at this level a couple of years ago, but then when it all fell apart with that loss at Iowa, I think of the fair weather fans, the people who lose faith quickly, jumped off the bus, and Indiana has to win some games to get them back on board. If they would, I don't even know what they could do between now and then to get people back on board. They're not going to do Ohio State. I can't envision that happening, but they can't, like you said, they can't get blown out. To me, they're 30-point underdog. To me, they need to come within to get people excited again, they need to come within 2 touchdowns. I think 3 touchdowns, you're still covering the spread, but getting beat by 3 touchdowns shouldn't be something you get excited about. And if it's worse than that, the whole thing's going to start up about, Tom Allen and is he the guy and all that kind of stuff.
Rick Bozich with us right now from WDRB.com. We've got more coming up right after this break.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
What kind of crowd they expect on Saturday? I heard it's not huge.
Now, I would be shocked if it's not sold out.
Really?
Just because of Ohio State. All the fans that half of them that don't get to go to games at Ohio State, and then all the fans that do get to go. Hell, there's 100,000 people that go there. So if just 25,000 of those comes into the game, well, that's half of the stadium right there.
Yeah,
and it's such a short trip. All those guys they got traveling. There'll probably be so many buses over in the lot.
Okay. We'll see.
But I could be wrong. But the weather's going to be spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people because it's Labor Day weekend, it's the last weekend of summer, they go away for the weekend or whatever.
It's a weird feel this year. It doesn't feel like it's week 1. Maybe it will once the game's here. I don't know. It's odd.
Right.
Maybe it's the hangover of this quarterback crap, of not knowing stuff. It's like, okay, here we go again. What do you want us to talk about? How you want us to cover you, but yet, so
having not seen much of either one of these guys play, I've never seen David Jackson play.
Brad Nessler calling the game for CBS.
If it was a quarterback, it was a drop back guy like Sudfeld, and the other guy was a running guy like I don't know who, Kellen Lewis or whatever, I could see where it make a difference. But aren't Sorsby and Jackson really similar in terms of their skill set? Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know what the difference is.
I have heard that David may have been overrated, and I can easily see that because of the program he comes from.
Right.
But they won a lot, though. He won a lot while he was there.
Center Grove, yeah.
But the fact, and I hate to put this on because I don't know it for sure, but his name didn't hurt him.
Sure.
Because of what Trace Jackson Davis was doing at the time. It really kind of kept his name up, and anytime your name's getting out there, you're getting bumps. So,
all right, here we go.
I've never seen him play, so I don't know how good he is.
Pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by K-Bello. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. Rick Bozich, the Hall of Famer, with us from WDRB.com. This weekend, week one of college football underway. Louisville taking on Georgia Tech on Friday night. Indiana taking on Ohio State on Saturday. Purdue is hosting Fresno State. Indiana plays on next Friday. Unfortunately, coinciding with the grand opening concert that Jim Irsay is putting on up in Indianapolis. So
Indiana's game against Indiana State is a Friday night game?
Yeah.
Wow.
They have the Friday night game, which I hate Friday night games. It's like, God, they played on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You can't leave Friday alone for the high schools.
I agree. Friday night should be left to high schools.
There's no pride or tradition. Nobody cares about anything anymore. The conferences. I mean, it's looking more and more. I mean, Cal and Stanford are not going to have a choice but to join the ACC, and the ACC don't have a choice but to take them. And the deals that they're accepting, I'm like, wow, they're taking 30 cents on the dollar to go in, and SMU is going in for nothing for 7 years. I'm like, what are you going to use to survive?
They got some high money people down there in SMU. It's all about their pride. They don't want to be left behind in Nowheresville. I guess the way to think of it is that what they're agreeing to today will be irrelevant next year because they'll change their mind and somebody else will make a move and go somewhere else. So talking about 7 years is foolish. There's no commitment that lasts, 7 days. So, right? I mean,
except for the one that ESPN has over the ACC apparently, because Betty, they're like locked in jail.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was just 2 years ago that the ACC and Pac-12 and the Big Ten had that gentleman's scheduling agreement or whatever it was where they were.
Oh yes, the alliance.
Look out, have everybody's back. How'd that work?
Yeah, but Kevin Warren was a part of that, baby.
Yeah, I know.
So,
and then he left and went to the Bears.
There was a piece in the Indy Star that talked about the top paid at people at Indiana's public universities in 2022. Do you know who that was?
Number one, I'll say Tom Allen.
Jeff Brom.
Jeff Brom was number one. Okay.
Yeah.
Who was two? Tom Allen?
I guess he was at number 2 at 4.9. Yeah. Yeah. And then Mike Woodson, but now he's tied with Tom Allen in 2023 because he just got $1 million raise. So Indiana would have tied for second. Then Matt Painter comes in. Then Ryan Miller.
Ryan Miller. Who's Ryan Miller?
Forgetting who's
Archie. Oh, that's Archie.
That's Archie Miller. That's right. $2.4 million. Archie Ryan Miller. That's right. That was $2.4 million of his buyout. So 1, 2, 3, 4. He was fifth. He was the fifth highest paid person, and he wasn't even there. I don't even know who Jay Hess is.
And you're wondering why nobody has any faith or confidence in any of this stuff? Come on.
And it gets.
I like it better when you call him Little Rhodey.
Oh, I do call him Little Rhodey. If I'd have known that, I'd have said Little Rhodey. That's the greatest nickname ever. Hopefully you'll write a book one day, and that's my only way I'll make it in there. I used to be on Jim Coyle show, and he would call him Lil Rhodey. Michael Babinski, who is the athletics director at Purdue. Here we go. It tells you who they are. Jay Hess, the School of Medicine dean at IU. Okay. He was right behind Lil Rhodey. And then there's Michael Babinski, the athletics director at Purdue, makes $1 million a year, which that's a ton because I know what IU's kind of makes, and I don't think it's close to that. As a matter of fact, the AD at Purdue makes more than the president, Mitch Daniels. That's a little shocker.
That seems silly.
Then Terry Moore, the women's head coach, who was the only woman on the list at just under $1 million, but I think she's got a new deal. Then Michael McRobbie, president emeritus from IU, who has also been gone.
So he's still
more,
making money?
More than the current president, apparently. So
you're giving me a headache, Jim.
Giving me a heart attack. But there you go. There's your money splits. But all righty, it's week 1, man. What are you expecting?
I made my picks. Eric Crawford and I made our picks. I got Louisville winning. They're favored by 7.5. I got them winning by 7. I think it'll be a close game. I think people are overlooking Georgia Tech a little bit. Most people are already putting this in the W column for Louisville. And Georgia Tech strong last year. They won half of their last 8 games after they made a coaching change, beat Pitt, beat North Carolina, got a lot of players back. So I think Louisville will win, but it'll be a tough game. The Hoosiers are a 30-point underdog. I've got Ohio State covering. I think Ryan Day, after losing to Michigan last year, and people are grumbling because they lost that game to Michigan and they lost the one to Georgia in the playoffs. And new quarterback, I think he's going to come out and try and put up big numbers on the Hoosiers. And until I see they have a quarterback and an offensive line that can function, it's hard for me to have much optimism in what they're going to do. My picks for the season, I went with Indiana 3-9. I look at the schedule, give them W's against Indiana State and Akron. Rutgers would be the third one, but they're going to be an underdog in every other game, aren't they?
Yeah, they travel to Maryland. They travel to
Maryland. Michigan State at home, I guess. Michigan State at home, they can possibly be a favorite. But, they got to show me. I mean, what?
They've got to go to Illinois.
They won 4. They won 4 last year. I mean, Illinois game could have gone either way. Western Kentucky game could have gone either way. Michigan State game could have gone either way. I mean, they're going to have to prove it to me that they're better. And maybe they will be, but I got to see proof on the field. And I think I have Louisville going 8-4. Louisville's got a really Louisville's got a great schedule. I mean, the allegedly the three best teams in the ACC are Clemson, Florida State, and North Carolina, and Louisville doesn't play any of them. And two of their road games are actually off campus. They're playing Georgia Tech in Atlanta, but it's not on campus. It's in the Falcon Stadium, so it shouldn't be a big home field advantage. And they're playing Indiana in Lucas Oil, and as I already said, I think they'll have more fans there. So, they got a nice schedule, and I think they're going to win 8 games.
Could Jeff Brom have been given a better first-year schedule if he had written it himself?
No, he's got Notre Dame and Kentucky at home. His toughest games on the road are NC State and Miami. Their schedule is the kind of schedule you want to have. They're not going to Michigan, they're not going to Penn State, and they don't open against Ohio State.
Has he ever coached against Notre Dame before?
Yeah, I think they played Purdue one year. I think they did. Pretty sure they did.
I know that they're on the schedule. Actually, it was just a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because I had long thought that, yes, Louisville was a destination, but Notre Dame was a place that would be in Brom's mind of wanting to, just because of the going to Trinity, the Catholic family in Louisville. Louisville has a big Notre Dame connection from the old Flagey high school days.
Yes,
and there's a lot of Notre Dame fans there. Paul Horning, of course, from Louisville, and the Golden Boy played for the Packers. And I was like, I could see him ending up at Notre Dame one day, and maybe that still happens. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I don't see him leaving here. He likes it here. His parents are here. His brothers.
It's easy.
They're all here.
Easy schedules.
They're all here.
I didn't mention of those people I was talking about, top paid. Brian Brom was up on the list as well.
He's the OC here. I mean, he's going to be up in the booth Friday night. Jeff calls the plays, but Brian's in the booth making recommendations. But Jeff is the caller. And
that's another advantage Louisville has. Does Brian Brom ever leave? Or is he just content with staying at home, living at home, being an OC at his old school? Or do you think he wants to run his own program one day?
I don't know him well enough to say that, but from what I've heard, I'd say yes. I think he's a really smart guy. He's a very talented guy, and I think he's got enough of internal drive that he would want to run his own program someday. So I think that's one reason that Jeff, he's been very comfortable letting Jeff bring a lot of his stuff, and part of that is to, help train him for the next possible job.
Yeah, I think he played 12 years in the NFL.
Brian? No, he didn't play that long. He only played 3 or 4.
I'm thinking of can't think of his name. One
Chris Redmond.
Came right before. Yes, Redmond. Didn't he? Somebody had 12-year career.
Chris Redmond was around as a backup for quite a while with the Ravens and the Falcons. Yeah, but he's coaching high school. He's helping coach a high school team down here at Christian Academy.
It's so funny how many guys that are off coaching high schools that people don't know about now, big time names that are out doing that and enjoying it, and somewhat in anonymity. But high school, what's Trinity like? They come to play, or I don't know, I can't remember where the game is, but they're going to be playing what Kyle Neddenriep thinks is the best team in Indiana, Center Grove, this Friday. Or this weekend.
Trinity won its season opener against Lexington Bryan Station. Then they got beat at home on Saturday by the best team in Lexington, which I think it's Lexington Christian. They lost to them 17-14. So they're good. They're not as good as they used to be 3 or 4 years ago. Their coach hired Bob Beatty, and he was a college-level coach. I mean, they had a very, very sophisticated passing game and good players every year that went off to major colleges. And they haven't been quite the same since they lost Bob Beatty. What is Kyle? I mean, Kyle Neddenriep's seen Jackson play as much as anybody. What does he think?
I didn't want to put him on the spot about that until after. We'll wait till this week comes by, and then I'll revisit that. But we did talk about Center Grove, and while they're 1-1, they lost their opening game, but came back last week to beat Tennessee's 3-time defending state 6A champion handily. So I'm like, okay, they're pretty good. So
isn't there a
and
kid
he's
in Center Grove? It was a defensive lineman who was really good. Caden Curry or something was a good offensive lineman. He went to Ohio State. Defensive lineman. He went to Ohio State.
I think he was someplace up in the north.
No, he was Center Grove.
Was he Center Grove? Okay, I was thinking.
Let me try.
There's so many. There was the kid that was a defensive lineman I was thinking of. But Center Grove always has.
Caden Curry is a defensive lineman, edge rusher at Ohio State. Yep.
They've got plenty of guys. I think it was Center Grove and Cathedral that had guys play against each other in the national championship a few years ago with Clemson and Ohio State, or in the college football playoffs, rather.
Ohio State lost to one guy from Ben Davis, right? The offensive lineman, the big guy who was a basketball player. What was his name? DeJuan Jones. He's gone.
I think, yeah, didn't he graduate?
Yeah, but they got Josh Meyer, who's redshirt junior. He's in Indianapolis. He's starting at left tackle.
They've got the kid from Floyd Central that we talked about, who's a backup.
Zen Michalczewski. Yeah, Zen Michalczewski. And Caden Curry's listed as the second team defensive end behind this JT Tumalayao, who's a first-round NFL draft pick. So they got dudes.
They got dudes. That's
the thing.
I didn't play against guys like that in high school. Thank God.
That's the thing about football that never changes. In basketball, you can have a time where Wisconsin has the best in the 10, or Purdue has the best players, or Indiana does, or Michigan State, or Michigan. It can shift, okay? Maryland might have 3 or 4 NBA guys. In football, it never changes. It's always Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State have the best dudes year after year after year after year after year. It never changes.
And if it doesn't, I talked to before you joined us. That's one of the things I mentioned. Indiana, you think about Ty Freifogel and the receivers, Westbrook, who are still toiling in the NFL right now from a couple of years ago. But there aren't guys that are from the last couple of years. And that has been a gigantic difference. You don't have that kind of talent on your team, then it's going to show on the field. And so Indiana has had a talent drain as well. So there's that. What's up next for you, man?
Like I said, getting in the car tomorrow. Eric Crawford and I are having to Atlanta for the little Purdue game. I'm sure we'll listen to a bunch of college football driving home on Saturday, and I'll be watching a bunch of games just like you are. I guess the game I'm looking forward to the most, other than the ones involving the local team, is Sunday night game, which is Florida State and LSU. That's probably the one. That's the best game of opening weekend. 2 top 10 teams, SEC, ACC dynamic, a neutral field in Orlando. I want to see that. And, you want to see people are sort of downplaying Alabama this year a little bit. How good are they? Watch some of the other Big Ten teams if I can to see, if there's anybody out there that Indiana might be able to beat. Watch the other teams on Louisville and Kentucky schedule. So just dive into college. Tomorrow night is the first game, right? It's Minnesota, Nebraska at Minnesota is on national TV.
Yep, sir. Starts on Thursday. That's right.
So lot to do. Yes. Exciting time of year.
Long weekend, man, all the way through Monday. So looking forward to it. Make sure you're following Rick Bozich for everything sports related. Buddy, have a safe trip. Right. Look forward to talking to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Bye-bye.
Rick Bozich joining us here on Indiana Sports Speed Radio as he is getting ready to head out to Atlanta to cover some college football. And we'll look forward to talking to him about how that went, as Indiana will be playing Louisville in a couple of weeks. So everything is related. Purdue playing Fresno State. Does Notre Dame have a game this week?
It's a good question. I do not know. Usually week 0 teams take off week 1, but as we remember last year, Illinois played in week 0, but they also played Indiana in week 1.
Yeah, because you get a bye regardless, but oh, daggone it.
Notre Dame is playing Tennessee State this weekend, so they are not off.
I think I saw that. So basically, they're off.
1 minute.
Yeah, basically Notre Dame is off this weekend. They play Tennessee State. That is being off. Yeah, Herbal, I've got LSU as well, but that would be a major upset for Florida State if they can get that done. What a time it was today. Thanks a lot so much to Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star, and of course, our good friend Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Most importantly, thanks to you. Without you, we have no reason to be here. We appreciate you giving us that opportunity each and every day. Thanks to John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. We're back tomorrow again with a big stellar lineup. Matt Taylor, Chris Denary, Dustin Schutte, and Angelo Pizzo. He's got a new film out. Back tomorrow. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.